is one of the most courageous people I've ever had of being taught by. Dr. Mona Minkara is one of the founders of ETI, a non-profit
No, that's my
organization.
sister. Sorry, that's my sister.
I think you worked with ETI.
I worked a little bit. Yes.
Yes,
My sister's the founder. Yeah.
a
Sorry.
non-profit organization which aims to develop a more inclusive society for empowering youth with disabilities. Professor Minkara completed her BA in chemistry at Wellesley College, followed by her PhD at the University of Florida and postdoc at the University of Minnesota. In 2016, she was awarded a Ford Fellowship from the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. She is also a member of the American Chemical Society and the Disabilities Outreach and Inclusion Community. Dr. Minkara is currently a professor and associate professor of bioengineering at Northeastern, and through her work seeks to increase accessibility to STEM. Professor Minkara, we are very honored to host you in Malden and look forward to hearing about your journey about growing up Muslim in America.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Okay. Let's see. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let me hear that one more time. Assalamu alaikum. I think it's good. Can you all hear me? Here, I can hold it too. Can you all hear me? Oh, much better. Okay. Okay. I was asked to speak about my experience growing up Muslim in America. I'm going to start off with this. It is a privilege to be different. Think about that. It is a privilege to be what? To be different. So when we go out into the world here, the majority of people around us, are they Muslim? No, yeah, I want louder. Yes, thank you. Thank you. They're not, right? What does that make you do? Makes you feel uncomfortable. What else? An opportunity to teach them. What else does it do? It could change your behavior. It makes you question, right? It makes you wonder, why am I Muslim? Right? Yes, why I'm different, but I'm different because I'm Muslim, right? Well, in my case, I was different for many reasons. So, I'll start off with a little bit of my story. You guys want to hear about my story? Okay. And please, I think afterwards we'll have questions. So I was born to my mom, my mom and dad were in Maryland at the time. My mom gave birth to me in Tacoma Park. Mama somewhere in the audience over here, and Baba somewhere over there. I was born in Maryland, and I don't remember most of my days before I was 7 years old, which is when we moved out to the South Shore. So you guys are in the North. I grew up in the South Shore. When I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with macular degeneration and cone rod dystrophy, which means, doctor said, I was going to lose my eyesight. At the time, I had no idea what that meant. At the same time, I was going to public school. I am a proud graduate of the public school systems in Hingham. So, life continued, and I have to tell you this. When I was a child, especially elementary school, I was bullied a lot. I was bullied not because I was Muslim at the time. I was bullied because I was losing my eyesight. And a lot of those memories I don't remember, but one of the stories was when I was, I think, 9 years old. I really wanted to hang out with these girls in my class. So they were like, Mona, come over here. Come sit with us. And I was like so excited to do what? To sit with them, right? I had no idea that the girls had taken yogurt and spread it all over the seat, knowing that I wouldn't see it to sit in it. But this one girl, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget her. Katie Doherty saw me and she said, Mona, don't sit. They put yogurt on the seat. And you know what happened that day to me, you guys? I learned a very valuable lesson. Anybody want to guess what that lesson was? Not to trust? No, that wasn't the lesson. That's not a good lesson anyway. I'm just kidding. To be careful. That wasn't the lesson that I learned, actually. To select my friends. There's good people. That's not the lesson that I learned, actually. I'll tell you what I learned. The lesson that I learned, yeah, I'll just tell you. The lesson that I learned is not to be desperate to follow people, right? And there are good people in the world. Those girls just thought they were making a joke. They had a laugh. I mean, I didn't say it, so it didn't work. But that specific event stayed with me. And when I went off to middle school, which is in my town, that's when you would leave your elementary school, and I went off to middle school, and all the different schools came together, right, in Hingham. I was like, I'm gonna restate my identity. So I decided to wear the hijab. Okay? I was like, I don't care anymore about what people think of me. I'm gonna forge my own path. And I decided to wear the hijab. And I remember my parents at the time, they were like, You're too young, are you sure? And I was like, Yes. And I remember going into that middle school. I was 11 years old. I wanted to do it. My parents double checked with me. Is that something you really want to do? And I was like, Yes. Because I was done. I was done waiting for people to want to be with me. I realized that I needed to push my own path. And when I made that choice, I made the choice to be what, you guys? To be different. I made the choice to be different. And you know what the irony is? You want to know what the big secret is? When you choose to be different, people want to be with you. Right? When you choose to be different, what happens? You have confidence, you've made a choice. People want to do what? They start to gravitate towards you. And at the time, I was the only hijabi in the entire school. And I started to realize how important it was that I was choosing this identity. And growing up, I grew up going to the Quincy Masjid. My best friend, who's still my friend today, was a friend I made when I was 7 years old at the Quincy Masjid in Saturday school. Subhanallah, her name is Selma. And to this day, I still hang out with her. And that was a very important part of my childhood and growing up. It doesn't mean it was always easy, but what happens is I was in public school. You got to see what else is around you. There's a lot of outside pressures. All of that is not it's not undeniable. But it was really important that when I got home, I was able to speak to my parents. And it was really important that I heard the different lessons. I used to listen to Tariq Sweden. I don't know if anybody knows who that is. I used to listen to his tapes when I was a kid. And the older I got and the more I got to see of the world around me, the more I learned that what Islam has to offer was a faith, but also a way of life. That Islam taught me the choices that I needed to succeed because I had a goal. Because I was blind, my entire life, a lot of my teachers were thinking that I couldn't do what I wanted to do, which is I've always wanted to be a scientist. But I realized that in Islam are the choices that you need to succeed. And I feel like I'm skipping over a lot of details. And please, I definitely want you all to ask me questions. So then it was time to go off to college. I went through high school, and I was involved in a lot of public school activities. Like I was, math. I was on the track team, so I did sports and I did like math. What was they called? Mathletes and debate club. Like I did it all. It was a great experience for me. And then it was time to go off to college, and it was a big deal because one of the schools that I really wanted to go to was actually it was my mom who had told me to apply to Wellesley College. I can't forget that. And it was a school that I ended up going to because it was like the coolest school that I experienced, and they gave me good money. So, but when it was time to go, one of the things that they wanted was for us to actually live in dorm at Wellesley, which was a novel idea, right, for my family. But I'll never forget this. It was like 2 weeks before Wellesley started. Mama was making istikhara, like my dad too, and they made the choice to send me. My mom always says she she trusts the foundations she built. And at the end of the day, like for parents out there, you have to trust that if you've given your kids the values they need to understand the power in their difference, to understand the power in the choice of being Muslim, that they can go out and they have to be able, and you have to not be fearful. This is for the parents. It's really important to not approach your kids with fear, but to approach with as much love as you can and openness, because that is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna guide your kids if your intention is there. Right? And that's what happened. I ended up having an amazing time at Wellesley College, and I lived at Wellesley, and my life continued. I went to grad school, and Minnesota, as you said. I lived in Florida, and then I lived in Minnesota, and now I'm back here, and alhamdulillah, I have a job that I really love, and I'm doing research. I actually study pulmonary surfactant, which is, all of you here are breathing, right? Inshallah, yeah, yeah, okay, good. The reason why you're able to breathe is because you have the substance in your lungs that allows you to breathe, and this is the substance that I study. Actually, I computationally model it, and so alhamdulillah, I have a research team and I teach class. But with that, I would also love to know, which aspects are you all worried about growing up Muslim in America? And I'd love to talk to you about that. Youths, wherever you are. Are you worried? What worries you about growing up Muslim in America? Okay, nothing worries him. I want to know from the parents. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have school age children right now, but I am just talking about what I hear from other parents.
So the worry of being discriminated against.
Discriminated against and being bullied. Like, there was an incident that a teenager pulled the scarf of another teenager girl in the school. I heard that there was on WhatsApp, there was teachers who stepped on the hands of the praying group in the library. And this was a big scene here in, I don't know if it was in Malden. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Does anybody know if anybody took action against that teacher?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. There was action against it.
So this is my advice about this. Number one, always approach. The first thing, right, is approach people with the benefit of the doubt. If that's not enough, if they are truly transgressing, then you take action. So you guys all want to hear a story of something that actually happened to me? Okay. When I was applying for faculty positions, I had gotten a job. I won't state the name of the university, but I had gotten an offer, like an invitation to fly out to do an interview. Okay. This was a really big deal for me. I was really excited. It was like closer to home. It was the first time I was getting an invite for a job interview. Everybody with me? Okay. So I show up at this job interview, and the way faculty interviews go, I don't know if anybody else has experienced them. They're 2 days of back-to-back meetings, like meeting after meeting after meeting. It's a lot, right? So you show up, and they usually like interview you at breakfast, and then you interview whatever. So I had the first interview, second interview. I go into this guy's office, and they're usually one-on-one interviews, so nobody else is around. Okay. I go in. I mean, this guy's office was like filled with boxes, which is not a relevant detail, but it was like filled with boxes. And I was walking in and I sit down, and this guy goes, "So, how are you going to do this job when you're blind?" Okay, I give him benefit of the doubt. He's just curious, how will I be a professor? So I sit there and I answer him. Okay. And by the way, he can't technically ask that question, but I gave him benefit of the doubt. Then he goes, "I see you're Muslim." This is, by the way, completely illegal. He can't talk about religion in an interview. This is really important to know your rights. And I say, "Yes." Okay, I'm still trying to figure out like what's happening. Is this guy just old, like doesn't know the rules? Like what's happening? He goes, "I read that your parents are Lebanese. I hate Lebanon." Okay. And I say, so now I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, what is happening? Right? So I'm just like, I sit silently for a second. Then he goes, "I think Israel gets a bad rep in the media. Don't you?" And I look at him and I say, "You really want this to be part of the interview?" And he goes, "Well, I really don't think you can do this job." And I say, "Well, why did you fly me out?" You know, they paid for my expenses to fly me out for this interview. He goes, "Oh, the committee really wanted you, but I don't want you." Mm. What did he do? Did he discriminate against me? Yes. I had two choices, you guys. First choice was I could flip out and yell at him then. Second choice was I can be more strategic. What did I do? No, I did not flip out in front of him because I felt like that wasn't getting me anywhere. But then later on in that day, guess what? I had an interview with the dean. So the dean asked me, "How has your interview process been?" And I said, "Honestly, this person said XYZ to me. And I feel like I don't think this place is a good fit." And she's like, "No, no, no, really? Like, no." And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I was really disheartened by how this particular faculty member treated me, right? This dean took me so seriously that they called me after 2 days and they're like, "Do you want to file Title IX?" And I said, "Yes, let me file Title IX." You guys know what Title IX is? It's a discrimination act. It's really important to know your rights, but it's also really important to not always feel like the world is against you. Do you see the balance? So I filed Title IX, which is a discrimination. The university took me seriously. They opened an investigation. Turns out this guy had many complaints against him. Okay? And my complaint was what's the expression? The straw that broke the camel's back. He actually was forced into retirement. He lost his job. So what do we learn from this, you guys? It's really important that as a Muslim ummah and Muslim community, you feel what? You feel empowered. There are people that are good out there. It's really important that you approach life with empowerment. I'm not saying you sit back and you let people do whatever. No. You raise your voice, you stand up when it's time. But also, you don't always jump to the conclusion of discrimination unless you know. Does that make sense? Yeah. Did you guys like that story? True story. Yeah. Anyways, any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Did you take this position or you didn't?
No, I did not take that position. They did want me. They offered me the job, by the way, and then they flew me out again. And then I didn't like what a faculty member. And yeah, it's a long story, but I said no. No, it was not at Northeastern.
All consistent. So the thing that worries me most nowadays is like the concept of the evolution or the things that are being portrayed in school curriculums, especially like with the genderism that's going on nowadays.
I can repeat the question. He's worried about what curriculum is talking about evolution and genderism. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just
Okay. What exactly are you worried about that's being taught?
nowadays in the school curriculums, like they're teaching children, s- especially the concept like they're totally removing out, um, like we were created from Adam alayhi salam, and
Yes.
that's being taught as like apes, and then so on and so forth, especially transgenderism.
Okay, so I don't know about them teaching transgenderism, but I can talk about evolution. So evolution, one of the things that the one thing we don't believe as Muslims is that we came from apes. We believe that we came from Sayyidina Adam, right? So that's the one thing we disagree with them on. So if that's being taught, you can have a conversation with your kids about that and open up. But just that point, I think it's really important. You cannot live in fear because if they're not necessarily hearing it in the classroom, there's so much body of literature out there. And it's really important to be able to teach your kids critical thinking, which means the classroom is one place, but also the internet, right? There's so much social media and internet. So you're not going to be able to ever control everything your kids have access to, right? Especially when they grow older and the views that they're going to face and interactions that they're going to have in the wider world because we live in a bigger world. So then what do? You work on the foundations at home. That is my personal opinion. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Any other questions?
So the school that I go to, right? Sorry, I'm sorry.
I
So the school that I go to, I feel like like as a student, right? Especially about Islam, I've been like recently we've been talking about like they've been talking about Islam and stuff, and I've been like, so there's this kid at my school whose parents are like they don't teach him enough about Islam, so I wanted to like start teaching him a little bit more, but like the more like they get when they get to the curriculum of like Islam and stuff, it gets to a point where like they start saying bad stuff about it, like or they like brainwash these kids into thinking like it's like a bad way of life. And like, do you know how like we could change that?
Oh, 100%. Are you in? Do you guys want me to repeat the question? Okay, so the question that was asked is that in school, when it's time to teach about Islam, right, it's being portrayed in a negative light. Is that what you're saying? And is there anything that we can do about it? What do y'all think? Can we do something about that? I want to hear it as a room. Can we do something about that? One more time. Can we do something about that? What can we do? We can go and speak to the teachers. We can find curricula that exist that shows Islam in a good light and say, please teach from this curriculum. You have a right to do that because I presume this is public school, right? Is it public school? Yeah? It's public school, which means it's what? It's school running from your taxpayers' money. Okay, that's also part of, I think that's part of the public school system too. So you go and you say, I don't like how this is being portrayed. This is an alternative curriculum that I would love for you to teach from. But you have to do your research and you have to speak up. And it's really important to feel what? Empowered. We as a community need to feel empowered. We can't feel like we're the victims or we will not succeed. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Good question, by the way.
We have a question from the sister side. I'm scared of going to the women's bathroom nowadays, not being able to know who's what respectfully. Any advice?
Don't overthink it too much. At the end of the day, you have your own personal bathroom stall, right? Like I hear you, I hear your worry, but you have your own bathroom stall. If you need to fix your hijab, fix it in the stall and wash your hands like outside. But usually you have your own stall. So I don't know what else to tell you. Like I have to use a public bathroom too. And yeah. You're doing your best. This is fi sabilillah. That's all you can do. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for a very inspiring talk. What practical advice do you have for young people who are just starting their careers to, I guess, make such a big impact? Because academia is obviously hyper competitive. Um, so you, mashallah, did better than most. So what practical advice do you have for the young people here to really get ahead of the curve? Network, do their own research.
Yes.
make their own
Okay.
path.
Definitely. Yeah. You need to network. You need to ask. Okay. Especially if you're going to a bigger school. So if you're going to a school that's like really big, especially for undergrads, you might get lost in the shuffle. So definitely reach out. You ask your academic advisor. You ask your professor. You ask everybody that is in some position of power what opportunities exist. This is the biggest thing you can do for yourself. Always ask, because there are things you don't get to learn about, especially if your parents didn't grow up in this country. There are opportunities you might not know about while your peers do because their parents did it. Does that make sense? So ask, because at the end of the day, we're all, inshallah, alhamdulillah, empowered. So you ask for opportunities, do research. If I were you, try to see if you can get yourself a co-op. Definitely get yourself a job. Get yourself into different clubs. Network with all types of people because you're going to learn something from everyone. And as long as you approach it with curiosity, you're going to be fine. Curiosity and action. Yes. Any other questions? Yeah.
Assalamu
My
alaikum.
husband.
You talked a little bit about kind of the internet, and especially within recent years, there's like the rise of like influencer culture, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned about like the advice for the parents, like the importance of kind of imbuing those values in their children from an early age.
Yeah.
But what advice do you have for young people in sort of like being able to navigate the space of multiple, let's say, personalities or different groups on the internet that are kind of vying for you to follow them or to live your life by their example? How to discern between right and wrong in a place where everyone says they're right?
Oh, that's a really good question. It comes down to what is it that you want to do in this life, right? So you start off there. So for anybody who's listening, who's the youth, what is it that you want to achieve in your life? And as Muslims, our goal is to serve Allah, right? And you can serve Allah in many different ways. You can serve Allah in becoming a researcher or a writer or, like giving to the community. There's so many ways to serve Allah. But your goal is to serve Allah and do your ibadah that way. So then you start thinking. Realize that every single time you watch something, you read something, that's input, right? It's like food for your mind and soul. And you have to stop. Is this nourishing my mind and soul? Is this getting me closer to my goal? And then you take a minute, you contemplate. And if the answer is yes, you continue. If the answer is no, this is not helping me in my path or my goal, then you stop. It's really hard to especially like TikTok. You open it up and it just like blasts information at you. It's like so intense, in my opinion. It's so aggressive. So like you have to kind of take it slowly and recognize also how much time you're spending doing that. That's the best advice I can give right now. It's really hard. It's all about a matter of self-control. It's really hard. And it might take a little bit of time to get it right. I hope that answered your question.
Do we have any other questions from the women's side?
Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna repeat her. Do you want me, you want to repeat your question? Do you want me? So she asked, "How did I balance my identity between being Lebanese, Muslim, American?" Okay, and this is what it really comes down to. Well, first of all, Islam is my faith, right? I'm Muslim everywhere in the world. I love being American. I was born and raised here, and this country has given me a lot. There's no other country that I could have ever been a professor like this and run my own research lab as a blind person. It's only in America that that's possible right now. But also, my roots are in Lebanon. We grew up going to Lebanon. And I know this is also a privilege that every summer we spent going to Lebanon. So, like, alhamdulillah, I'm fluent in Arabic and I'm close to my family in Lebanon. And I realized just one day, I don't have to choose one of them. I'm all of them. I'm all of these identities. I'm not just Muslim. I'm not just like I'm all of them. I'm also a chemist, and I like to think I'm a storyteller. And it's just what you choose to be, and they do not need to conflict because they all exist inside of me. I hope that answered your question. And by the way, I love history, and I actually, the more I learned about the history of Lebanon, the more my love grew for it too. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, I didn't hear it very well.
Okay.
And yeah,
All
can you
right.
repeat the question again?
Yeah. So the question is, how do I help a friend who is straying from Islam as they are persuaded from those around them that the things that are haram as halal?
That's a really good question. And unfortunately, it does impact. So the first thing I would do is sit down and ask this person, what is happening? Why? And make sure when you talk to them, you talk to them with love. Because at the end of the day, they are on a journey and they must have some kind of anger in their heart if that's what they're thinking right now. And then you sit down and try to understand and you talk to them with kindness and you try to give examples of why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us these rules to help us in our life. Because that's the thing. Things are haram and halal because that is what's best for us. And that's the best I can that's the best answer I can give you without knowing the details.
Jazakallah khair.
I hope that answered. Any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Why-
This is not a question, but this is some comment I like to say for the youth. I mean, somebody said, what should we do? I mean, there's a youth program, you should join, the network is good, but approach an older Muslim, they're in good position and they can help a lot. And as an old man, I can't come to all the kids and say, do you need help? What do you need? You have to speak up. You have to come approach like another Muslim brother. You say, uncle, I really need your help. Can you advise me what to do? And we will help. But we can't just say, I'm here to help you. And because I don't know their problem. I don't know if they have a problem, but speak up, approach like another, somebody in position. And you don't know, just ask anybody, but I'm not saying you don't think this person can help you. Maybe he might know somebody else can help you.
I really love that comment. And my offer stands. For example, the person who asked about their friend who's straying, like if you really need to come and talk, come talk to me. Like I'm available to also talk to and help. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Yeah. I think you're talking about, okay, so my sister, who's amazing, Sada Minkara. Yes. So Sada Minkara established ETI. But right now Sada is the special advisor to Biden. Sorry. Alhamdulillah, it went away. So Sada is the special advisor to Biden for international disability rights. So now my sister, mashallah, she's going around the world trying to help like different countries. She was just in Jordan to talk about disabilities and actually make change in the policies. But I can tell you, like, yeah, when ETI was running, basically it was a phenomenal organization because it came from the perspective of not separating out the blind kids, but having camp in which half the kids were blind, half the kids were sighted, and that in one classroom you had that like 50-50 distribution, so it was normalized. And it's really important that we teach our kids not to pity people with disabilities, right? So and the sighted kids, because it was young, they didn't pity the blind kids. They were just like, oh, you can't see, okay, well, this exists here. And then the blind kids became like, it was a beautiful like philosophy that you could experience live when you were at the camp. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I have this friend who identifies as half Muslim, half Christian. How can I convince him to be more Muslim?
Okay. I love your question. You have to recognize this. They're probably doing it because one of their parents is Muslim, one of them is Christian. Right? Yeah. So this is how your friend is kind of honoring both halves of themselves. Now, first you have to approach them with kindness and love, right? And tell them, just ask them, do you believe in one God? If the answer is yes, that's halfway there. Do you believe Muhammad was his messenger? Okay, now he's Muslim. Do you believe Jesus was the son of God? That's probably the one thing that goes against this, right? It goes against Islam. Because the reality is Christianity is part of Islam. The true form of Christianity, right? What did we learn? We learned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been giving us the message throughout history, and it was, called different things, and we had different prophets, right? We believe in Sayyidina Isa as a prophet. We also believe in Sayyidina Musa as a prophet. So Judaism is part of Islam too, like the true form of it. So if your friend's half Christian, half Muslim, just tell him, okay, the Christian part, just make sure that, this is the true part. But that means your friend is Muslim. Did that help?
Yeah.
Nice question. Okay, you're saying how do you what? How, like, somebody told you take off your hijab so you're not shot, right? Like with a gun. So they're telling you take off your hijab because that's going to keep you safe, right? You know who's going to keep you safe? Allah's going to keep you safe. And you have to really believe in that. Do you believe that you're unsafe with the hijab on? Okay, that's fine. Just that's not even the right answer. Tell him, I don't need to change myself for other people. And that you trust in Allah. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to be keeping you safe. Yeah, go ahead. 100. It depends, and it depends on what you want to do. But yeah. But I'm yeah. But my statement is we're very far from what the prophet was feeling in the beginning. There's so many amazing people around us that do want to support us, actually, right? And that's what we need to focus on. Like, I'm not saying like, okay, if you happen to be in like a crazy situation, put yourself in harm. No, not at all. But we are in a community that there are more people who are nice than not nice, and that is how you should approach the world right now. My personal opinion.
We have another question from the brother here. If
We
you can
rely on
please
Allah. Anyways, yeah.
maintain
go ahead.
silence.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have a question about dealing with a lot of youth that have a double identity, personality situation going on.
Mhm.
So they throw on a mask when they go to the masjid, and they throw on a different mask when they're at school, and then at home it's a different mask, and at the youth program it's a different mask, and subhanallah, it's a bunch of
Different masks.
different
yeah.
identities
Yeah.
that are completely contradictory of each other. And being somebody who sees that, how would, first of all, what's the advice you give the youth who are doing that? Because it really saves them a lot of trouble at home, and it saves a lot of trouble in other
Well,
places.
I mean, unfortunately, the reason, like, if you're doing that, that means you are not being yourself in these different environments. So then the question goes to why are you not being your true self? And that the answer to that might be very complex. So why is it that you're going to have to change who you are in these different places? So what do you think? Why do you think they're doing that? The person who asked the question.
I mean, personally, I think it's it's just because of the way that, so if you act a certain way in school,
Yeah.
you fit in, and you don't have to act like that at home. So you can be as quote unquote crazy and hip and cool as you want to be in school, and as soon as you get home, you don't have to act like that, because you know your parents would really not like it. So it's
are
to
they,
really
is their
fit
true
in.
self the one in school or the one at home?
Allahu alam, to be honest.
But that's the, so
I
it's
don't think
it's
there's
really
a
hard
true
for me
self.
to
That's the issue.
and also the point here also is that they haven't embraced their differences. It's really hard for me to answer that question because it's a you're asking me to diagnose like a very general, like, I don't know why people are putting different masks. I can tell you this: if you are, you're not going to be at peace. Okay, you're
So
not going to have
how do you
contentment.
help somebody claim their real identity, I guess?
What you do is you try to help them be themselves around you. Allow them to be who they are around you. Try to let them open up and try not to judge, but be kind. And don't waver your your like guidelines. Don't change who you are, but let them be themselves. Because at the end of the day, if that person's doing that, they might not know who they are, but they're also not feeling very comfortable to express themselves. Right? The only reason why you wear a mask is why? You're not able to express who you are or even explore what that is. So be steady, be a kind friend, and use your knowledge in Islam or your guidelines to help when the time comes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the best. Yeah, it's deep questions. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, salam alaikum.
Why-
Uh, it it is really indeed very challenging to be a Muslim in America, especially for the youth. Social norms, discrimination, peer pressure, you name it. It's a lot of things. Even just as simple as eating, you really have. It's challenging. Does it have pork? Does it have pork? Is chicken seen? So it is really difficult and it's very challenging. Oh, I'm sorry. You hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it is very challenging, and especially for youth, like I said, I don't envy them really growing in a place like this with these social norms and changing and this is part of the previous question the brother mentioned. Uh, if the
Your voice
youth
is coming
wants-
in and out. Sorry.
yeah, the youth wants to assimilate, going to
Mhm.
school, going here. It's very difficult to deal with that. I don't know if you have any.
Well,
points on-
it's to be honest, I have a slightly different perspective, right? I grew up in the public school system. This is my country. And for me, were there challenges? Of course, but there's just challenges everywhere. But I don't feel like I personally, growing up Muslim in America, was like so challenging, or that I had specific. You're worried about pork and chicken? I mean, there are like classmates that are vegan, which is way harder, or like vegetarian. So everybody we're living in an age in which everybody's trying to follow whatever path that they choose for themselves. And I think sometimes it could be even harder when you go back, or like if I'm talking to my cousins in Lebanon and everybody around you is similar, and then they try to peer pressure you into something and saying it isn't Islam. The blessing that we have here is we have to ask those questions at a really young age, and you have to make those choices. And so, yes, when I was in school, was there prom? Yeah. Did I have to tell people I don't go to prom? Yes. That was fine. Did I have friends in school? Yeah. Did they understand that I didn't fast during the month of Ramadan? So I didn't sit with them during lunch? Yes. But the reality is the contentment has to come first from within. We have to teach our youth to be okay with who they are, right? I think the question about the masks is the core of the problem. Because if we can get to a point in which the kids are able to be themselves, then it's going to help with these issues. Because the reality is, the older you grow up, these things become less and less important, whether like how your peers eat. Okay. When you go off to college, you're going to find people like you. But while you're growing up, it's important that you realize why you teach your kids why they're making the choices that they're making. And not just because of fear. You have to teach them the benefits of those choices and the benefits of following this path. And that sometimes could be harder to do than to just be like, just talk about it. So I don't know if that's your question. Yeah, but these are my thoughts on it. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I had a couple of thoughts, and I really appreciate what you said at the beginning, that you have to actually claim your identity as early as possible. In order to do that, I think the families really need to give their kids confidence and really get them to understand how beautiful Islam is and the advantages that actually gives you. And I think if you don't do that at home, you can't expect a school that is not majority Muslim to give your kids the confidence that they need, right? And so you claim that at age 11, saying, okay, I understand that, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to claim that. And I think that's how you form friends. But if you start your kids to say, hey, I'm going to form friends by whatever they do and I'm going to join and I'm going to wear this mask here and this mask here, then you're never actually claiming who you are. I can give you an example at work. This is after growing up. And I also grew up in the US, in Oklahoma, where there weren't very few Muslims. no, in a small town, Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then after that, in another small town, West Lafayette, Indiana. And the way you claim it is people have to understand who you are and the values you bring and how important those are and why those are important. And then you'll have a better chance of succeeding. I'll give you an example. I worked with a couple of Muslim people, and because they didn't want to eat pork, as a brother mentioned, or they didn't want to risk it, they would tell people, hey, I'm vegetarian. Well, guess what? Next month, somebody saw him eating meat. Well, guess what happened now? Nobody trusts them anymore, right? So you could just say right at the beginning, I don't eat pork, right? Then when somebody sees you eating meat somewhere else, you're not the person to say, hey, Muslims, they lie, right? So you have to claim that right at the beginning, and you'll be surprised that as you mentioned at the very beginning, the friends that you end up getting, rather than being shy about who you are, and then you start seeing people actually go somewhere else. Because actually, one of the beautiful thing about this country, it is diverse enough, even in a small town like Stillwater, Oklahoma, that people want to know what's so unique about you. That's so cool. That's so different. But you have to actually build that confidence at home.
I really loved what you said, right? It's all about claiming that identity and understanding how beautiful Islam is from a young age. So, my question to all of you is how can we do that? And it's really important. One of the things that I have is very fond memories of going to the masjid, right? Of going to school. But are we allowing for that to happen at the masjid? It's really important that, we treat our kids with love and that they are having joy to come to the masjid. I think this is a really important part, right? So we start off by saying how can our youth stay kind of true to their Islamic identity? Well, they have to claim it. How do they claim it? It starts from a young age. So any other thoughts on how we can teach our young kids that Islam is beautiful? What can we do? What can we change?
And the influence that's happening around them is making them feel that other people are becoming taught and very strict and uptight, making Eid fun and decorate and making it about gathering, about gifts, about giving and being part of it, and be proud and happy about who they are and what Islam is.
Yeah. 100%. Did everybody hear that? So first, we make them enjoy Islam, right? That it's a place of joy and love. And I have memories of being my parents decorating the house for Eid and Ramadan. Any other thoughts? How can we implement that? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to say being comfortable in the uncomfortable is really something that a lot of parents should teach their kids, especially as someone going to college. Yeah, it's time for dhuhr. Let's, go pray right after that class, inshallah. Or being a woman in the workspace, not shaking a man's hand and putting it over your heart and letting them know that, yeah, that's going to make it uncomfortable for a bit of, the time. But I think it's the finding comfort within that and knowing that you're doing it for the betterment of you and for your religion, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's key.
Agreed. I love that. So, okay to be uncomfortable. I think sometimes, even as adults, we're not okay with being uncomfortable, but it's okay. What else? Any other thoughts?
I have a question on the girl side. As a student, how do you manage and balance religion and academics, such as school life?
Okay. Tell me more. What struggles are you facing? Can you tell me?
Unfortunately, the question is anonymous, but
okay.
If the
So
person
okay,
asked-
so-
Finding time to like review Quran or like while
Yeah, you're gonna have to be like a master of scheduling, right? Like you're gonna have to make sure that you organize your time. I mean, this is like a time management question, right? Like, so you realize you have Quran. Other kids are dealing with something else. You know what I mean? Like they might have, I don't know, track or debate team. You have Quran. So like you have to set aside that time because you've decided this is a priority and it is a really important priority. You also need to make sure that you've organized time for your academics, right? And that after class is over and it's time to pray the Lord, like the other sister said, you stop and you pray the Lord. That you make yourself a space to pray.
I just want to comment actually about this question. I think something that I learned, someone that taught me something is that, for example, if you're thinking about salah, to make your schedule around salah instead of kind of putting it into your schedule. You're making your schedule around the things that are most important, which are salah and all the other things. And I think balance or the school life balance or whatever that is, I think everyone, especially here in America, there's a lot of like people that, oh, we need to balance our life, which I don't think it's something that is as important as recognizing what is the most important, because when you recognize what's most important, that balance will automatically kind of fall into place. And I think that when we tell ourselves that we need to balance something, it means that we don't know how we have all the time that we need. I think we tell ourselves that we don't have time, but in reality, we all have the time. And it's just recognizing what's the priority. And so our priorities should be our religion in any aspect, in school and in any aspect of our life. So
I mean, 100%, right? Your priority is your religion. It is part of your religion and part of your ibadah to study too, right? So you have to make sure you're organized. And you're right. We all have enough time to do a lot more than what we think we can do. So I actually I was just at a halaqah and I thought this was really fascinating. The idea of being able to expand your time and things that you do that contracts your time. So if you want to feel like your time is more barakah for you or like expands, you should be always grateful to Allah. You should always like have contentment. You should always make dua. Don't procrastinate. That takes away from your time. There are things you can practice. If you're ungrateful and complain, that takes away from your time. But if you are like generative and that you're always trying to make things more productive for you, that's going to give you more time. Because time, subhanAllah, even though we all measure minutes and hours the same way, but what you get done in one particular hour is not going to be the same as another hour unless, you work at it. Does that make sense?
We are going to have two last questions before we wrap up.
Assalamu alaikum. Just actually a comment about what you said about how we can address this issue of dual identities. I actually grew up with your brother Ibrahim, by the way, and some of the most beautiful memories I had was the Qiyam programs at the Quincy Masjid. I think having that fallback, just knowing these are your people, will always help you out. But another thing, and building off of what Brother Naseem said earlier, and something I really appreciate that you brought up is just not to be a victim and not to be a loser. No, seriously, because
Yes.
I think that too often we just put ourselves in a victim position, which I mean, we're seeing the effects of that on a societal level. To like building, I don't have to tell you guys, but the other thing is the discipline that Islam gives us will let us take on any challenge in the world, really. And yes, we do live in a non-Muslim society, but the people here respect you if you hold it down. And actually, in high school and college, it was the Muslims who were wishy-washy that always would get dunked on by their non-Muslim friends. And it was kind of funny to see that, to be honest. But I think understanding that having boundaries is a beautiful thing. And in fact, that's what's actually causing a lot of people to come to Islam, because we're living in a time when there's uncontrolled freedom. At 4 years old, you can do the unthinkable to your body. Won't go into the details, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. And you're seeing the consequences for that. People I'm seeing now on a societal level, they really want to go back to rules. They want boundaries. And being a Muslim, the discipline that brings to you, I've had non-Muslim friends tell me that, how they wish they had prayer, how they wish they had boundaries, something that they could keep them in line. And they don't know where to go. So I think starting with ourselves, not having this loser mentality. ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنون. مؤمنين. I have to check the ayah, inshallah. Okay. But yes, and again, just thinking back to growing up actually in the same community as you, we had this fallback, and it was reinforced by the fact that we live in a very unique country. It's not France, it's not India, it's not these other countries where, yes, it's a crime to be Muslim. Here, you genuinely do have support if you're true to yourself. I think that's important for all parents to know, and all the kids.
It's part of the ideology here is the respect of the true self, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, share that, kind of adding to what you said in some of the other comments. And again, growing up in the same community, growing up in the same time, especially when after 9/11, when we had to go to the world to explain who we were as Muslims, it wasn't easy. But now it has never actually been easier, I think, to be a Muslim in this country. But again, my brothers and sisters who are here, just ask your colleagues, your compatriots. They would wish to have halal and haram in their life. They would wish to have a compass, a moral compass, which unfortunately, society is telling us more and more that there's no need for that. But we're seeing the exact opposite. SubhanAllah. That's just my thought.
Very nice. I actually, because of your thought, I want to share 2 stories, if that's okay with all of you. So it's so true. I actually, I have a YouTube channel. I don't know if anybody knows. It's called Planes, Trains, and Canes. If you have a chance, please go and like and subscribe. I traveled the globe as a blind individual, right? But I'm traveling with a camera woman, and she has seen me stop and pray in all different random locations around the globe, right? Because I'm traveling. And she said to me the other day, and she goes, Mona, I feel like you're so lucky you have something so constant that you can always go back to. When I was an undergrad, I'll never forget this. One night, I was going out with my non-Muslim friends, and we were going, I think, I don't know, to see a movie or something. I don't remember. But I was like, you guys, I need to stop. I need to pray. They were like, cool. We respect you. Okay, you got to do your thing. I stopped and prayed. Next day, I was with my Muslim friends. And I said, I need to stop. I need to pray. Maghrib is in. They're like, come on, Mona, you can wait. You're out. And I was like, what? Like, it is really important that you know what you need to do no matter what the people around you are. And you're right, though. You will find those people that will support you. So anyways, okay, there was one last comment.
I'm in middle school. I'm like young, but is it haram to like not pray if you're in school and if you're like doing classes? Cause like my classes are like 45 minutes each, and I have like 3. So
you only have 3 classes?
Yeah, I'm young. I'm 5th grade.
In 5th grade. So, I mean, like, what time do you finish school? Is it before Asr?
I finish 2:15.
So you have to pray Dhuhr, right?
Yep.
I think you need to take a 5-minute break and pray Dhuhr.
Yeah.
If you can, You
Right.
go to library maybe between classes, tell your teacher, just like, I need a 5-minute break. And anyways, don't you want a 5-minute break too?
Yep.
Okay. Last question. Okay. I think that's the end of it, right?
Here's the verse. I just wanted to read it. ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. Al Imran 139.
One more. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Professor, can we just extend it by maybe 3 more questions?
Yeah, I mean, I can be here. Good. We're good. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. So my question was, how do you know when it's your place to talk when it comes to, like, for example, like when your friends bring up the option of like LGBTQ or something, how do you respond without cancel culture or being
Oh, good question.
hated
Okay.
upon?
Okay, that's a really good question. So a lot of us are dealing with the LGBTQ and like cancel culture. This is how you respond. I mean, first of all, Islamically, the act, right, of homosexuality is haram. Islamically, the act of heterosexuality outside of marriage is also haram, right? Right? Everybody on the same page there. Both things are haram. But if somebody did do zina, or if somebody identifies or says that they're homosexual, right? That's between them and Allah. This is their situation. It doesn't mean I hate the human being in front of me. Does that make sense? And it doesn't mean that they don't deserve basic human rights. Whatever that that's the okay. Meaning like, they deserve a place at the table to eat or whatever. Like, let's keep that a little bit more streamlined on what that means. And so whenever you're going to speak up, you be yourself. So for example, if people ask me like, are you pro LGBTQ? I ask, what do you mean by pro? What exactly are you asking about? I say, personally, this is what I say. I'm a professor. There are students in my class, right? I say, look, this is your identity. It's not my place. This is between you. I don't need to know about that. But for me, in my faith, both the act of acting upon it is haram. If it's asked to me directly. This is the best I can give you right now. Did that help? Did that help? Okay, because like you don't want to talk disrespectfully either about individuals. You don't make it about a specific person. Ever. You don't make it ever about a specific person. You talk about your personal faith and you keep it about the act. Because I'm going to tell you a story, okay? I have a friend. Her mom was a convert. Allah yarhamha. She actually passed away from cancer, this particular friend. But this friend has a non-Muslim grandma and a non-Muslim aunt. And the non-Muslim aunt identifies as gay, okay? This lady, she's a very spiritual person to God. Like when she went to the church and the church told her, you're gay, you can't have a relationship with God. Do we believe that as Muslims? No, do we believe that as Muslims? So my friend told her aunt, she says, Aunt, in Islam, you can have a relationship with God. And that aunt was so touched, she started crying. Because she still has a path to Allah if she wants it. This is separate from the act. So it's really important that we act with diplomacy and we speak with love and kindness, but we don't change our truths. Does that make sense?
And a question from the sister side. Can you talk a little bit about friendships? In schools, our kids befriend kids from different faiths. What do you think about the influences?
I think it's really important first. It depends on the age group, right? Like, is your kid strong enough in their identity as a Muslim that they love when Eid is? It's really important. It's good for your kid to have friends because the reality is in the world, we're not always going to be interacting with just Muslims, right? We're going to be interacting with people from different faiths. But when Eid is here, let's make some Eid cookies and give them to the class. The kids are going to be like, wow, you're so cool. Like, I'm not kidding. We laugh at this, but this is really important. This is a form of dawah, right? Like, you teach your kid that, they do Christmas. Okay, don't spoil it for them. Santa Claus doesn't exist, but I almost spoiled it for my classmates when I was a kid. But like, you teach your kid how to interact and tell them, look, we don't do Christmas, but we do Eid. So it's inevitable. They have to interact with the larger society. I hope that answered the question. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. I think the brother talked about the responsibility of parents, which my question is, we are in times where even adults, many of them lack Islamic education. How can parents who do not have Islamic education build strong children? That's one.
Yeah. You can't. You have to build your own knowledge. So if you feel that you're lacking in the knowledge, there's so many amazing online courses and institutes alhamdulillah, like in America, what's so beautiful is there's so many institutes that you can find and sign up for classes. Sorry, continue.
Okay. Also, I think as an ummah, also we have the responsibility of building strong communities. We as Muslims nowadays, yes, we gather together, we pray together, but what are we doing beyond making salah together? Not much. We do not have our own Islamic schools in the communities that we have. We don't have Islamic universities. We don't have hospitals like some of the faiths do.
Mhm.
I think no matter what the parents do, we are in an environment where Muslims need to create their own environment. And unless we do that, unless we have a vision for the future, and we have a strategy on how to build strong communities, have our own masjids, have our own Islamic schools to build our own children and expand from there, I think we will not succeed.
I agree. I think we do need to do more. I think Islamic University would be amazing to actually establish here in America, and we should. Like, there's nothing stopping us other than ourselves, right? Um, I think that we can create more, and we have to do it with the right philosophy. The brother from Oklahoma, the reason why I asked Tulsa is I actually many years ago was invited to speak as to give a commencement speech at a Muslim school called Peace Academy. Okay, Muslim school that was so good that non-Muslim families were signing up their kids on the wait list to enter the school. Okay, and the valedictorian that year was not just going to Harvard, was also Hafiz al-Quran. This school had the American flag and had, you know, Quranic verses hanging. They truly embraced, in my opinion, what I thought was really cool, the idea of being Muslim in America. That we could be forerunners, we could be people, we can create institutions that are so good that non-Muslims want to come. Why not? We have the potential. Question is, why haven't we done it? Yeah, go ahead. Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so what I said. Yeah, and it's really, yeah, yeah. A lot of people have told me that.
Yeah.
So I have a really quick comment. I'm sorry. It's around just this idea of Islam and life. And I keep hearing some points that kind of differentiates these, but actually we have to understand that no matter what you do in life, when you go into work, this is part of Islam. And I think you want to mention this clearly as well when somebody said, well, how do I find time for Islam and how do I find time for school. These are not two different things. And I just want to give one quick example. At my work, I'm a biomedical engineer. When I was leaving the company one time, they said, "Hey, how can we find more people like you? So we want to hire more people." And I thought they meant more people from Purdue University biomedical engineers, because that's what I am to them. But actually, that's not what they wanted. They wanted certain ethics and principles and ideas that come with you. So I want to make sure that we as families and communities and kids teach our kids that you're more than just that education, but you're also more than just a prayer, because the prayer is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your character on a day-to-day basis is integral.
Yes, but back to what she was saying too, which I think was also really important, is this idea that if you want to raise your kids Muslim, you have to make sure that you have the knowledge too, and also differentiate. Like I loved what she said. She felt like she learned more about Islam when she came here at 25 than before.
One last question from the youth.
Okay, so how can I communicate?
Yes. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. How can I communicate with my principal to set up a prayer room?
Ask for a meeting with the principal and ask, I'd like a prayer space. They're not going to be able to fully, like, if it's a public school, they're not going to be able to say this is like a prayer just for Muslims. But they can create a space where you can pray because of the church, the separation of religion and state. But you have the right to go talk to your principal and say, I need a space to pray. Does that make sense?
Jazakallah khair,
And ask
Professor
nicely
Mona.
too. Yeah. Thank you. Please. Oh, thank you. And please, if you want to support me, please find my YouTube channel and like and subscribe. Thank you. Okay. Planes, Trains, and Canes.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum for having me.
Jazakallah
Thank you.
khair. We're going to have dinner now, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Professor Mona Minkara. We wish to see you again.
Wait, there was somebody who wanted to make an announcement about Quran.
I just wanted to say a way we can implement the Quran is that we can tell the definition to the kids that don't understand the Quran, and we can show scientific evidence that the Quran in fact is real.
I agree. Very nice. I agree. Takbir.